We met online, actually, and it was a swipe right, not a swipe left.
I love her. Present life.
That's it? That's it? From the first time you met me? It clicked. Yeah, it clicked. And I wouldn't change it.
Hi there, how are you guys?
This is my mom.
Hi. Hi, I'm Dr. Claire. My first name's Kitty. How are you?
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm Brian's sister.
Hi, nice to meet you. How are you? Yeah.
Tell her about your skydiving trip that's coming.
Yeah, I think that's the elephant in
He's
the
going to be
room.
jumping out of a plane.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
So tell me what. Okay.
Next week.
Next week. Oh my goodness. Seriously?
Seriously, yep, it's
Yeah,
a
we're
done
pretty-
deal.
Okay.
And he'll have an instructor with him, so he's not flying solo. And he's like, we're doing this. We're just going to go and we're going to jump out of a plane, like the last hurrah.
I bought my first ever horse when I was 13 years of age, and I worked full time, and it was my job to feed and water them and let them out during the day and then exercise them. That was my dream life. I was living my best life when I was 13 years old. Good girl, Sugar. I came out here with my granddaughter, Remy, because she also has a love for horses. And so I think she got that from Grandma. She's got the bug. Woohoo, Remy! Look at you go, honey. Woohoo! You got the gassiest, fartiest horse. We gotta change her name to Stinky, not Sugar. We're gonna look at some pictures of when Grandma was little, honey. Or when Grandma was little like you. Same age. Oh. This is Grandma and her first ever horse. My rocking horse. Yeah.
And this one is
Was Grandma cute or what?
I don't know.
What do you think? Let's see how old Grandma was. Grandma was 5 years old. I'm the same age as you. And look how pretty you are. And look how silly Grandma is. Funny hair. And there's no picture of a horse, but that's Grandma riding
An elephant.
an elephant. It was way up high. Grandma was scared.
I was scared on the horse.
Were ya? You didn't look scared. You looked very confident. Well, thank you for doing that with Grandma, honey. We'll put them back in the box. And someday these are going to live at your house, and then you can look at pictures of Grandma whenever you want. How's that? Okay. Get up, Grandma. Cane. Get my cane. Make sure we take my box.
We're going to start out with the biographical facts about Aaron Milligan.
Okay.
Let's say, right?
Yep.
But then we're going to talk about death.
Yeah. The reason we're all here.
Audrey was one of the most charismatic people I think that I've ever had a chance to spend a lot of time with. We were both working on an event that was happening in Halifax. It was kind of a cool, large fundraising event. There was celebrities, there was a star search, so I was producing the star search, and of course Audrey was looking after the celebrities. And I remember the first time I saw her, I was like, who is this woman? She had just a natural sparkle.
She was beautiful. She was honest, very energetic. She's a social creature and very well loved by many, many friends.
Audrey grew up in a small town in the Annapolis Valley, and she always knew she wanted to do something really, really special with her life. I know in chatting with her mom one time, she said, we'd always say, Audrey Parker, where did you come from? One of the things that she held really dearly is, regardless of your circumstances, everybody holds the key to their own happiness. You have to just figure out what that is. And, even with her cancer diagnosis, she really took the news quite matter-of-factly. She said to herself, I cried for about 5 minutes, and then I just made the decision to say, I'm going to lean into this. Audrey was diagnosed in February 2016. She had breast cancer, but it had already metastasized completely into her bones. So she was stage 4. And, as much as she had made peace with her death, the thought of losing control is something that is very scary for people.
There's a great expression, which I like to use, which says, we cure sometimes, we care often, and we comfort always. That's true throughout the different stages of life, and that's true in the last chapter of life, which we sometimes call dying or death. I don't distinguish dying and death as different from life. I think it's part of the same spectrum. So I do what I do for every stage. Quality of death is contributing to quality of life.
In many ways, assisted dying is absolutely about the gaining of control and the option for actually saying, I don't think it's worth carrying on anymore, and I want to take control of this, and not being left in the lurch because there was a clause in a law that said this was against the law.
Where do we begin? I guess the early 90s, because we had the case of Sue Rodriguez.
Rodriguez is slowly dying of ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. It has left her barely able to speak, to swallow, even to breathe.
She thanked Canadians for supporting her and urged Parliament to act.
I hope that Parliament will act.
She challenged the prohibition, but she lost. She lost 5-4 at the Supreme Court of Canada.
For Sue Rodriguez, the disappointing news arrived by fax, explaining why the Supreme Court of Canada said no to doctor-assisted suicide.
Well, the fact that somebody could be experiencing intolerable suffering and they could be fully capable in terms of decision-making, and they could not choose to end their life. They could choose to stop treatment. They could choose to stop eating and drinking, but they could not choose to have a lethal injection. And that seemed wrong because I couldn't see a distinction between withholding and withdrawal of life-sustaining treatment on the one hand and actively ending a life through an injection or through ingesting drugs. What's the moral distinction? And if there's no moral distinction, then it's wrong to just say the person has to undergo this much more painful death. What are you gaining there? Nothing but harm. In the 2000s, we started to think, well, wait a minute. We have a lot of data now from the Netherlands and Belgium and from Oregon, which were jurisdictions which allowed for assisted dying. So it was like, okay, enough time has passed that it's now time to bring this case because we have new facts and we have new law that we can argue. So you have the Carter case come forward.
A landmark Supreme Court hearing began today on whether to allow doctor-assisted suicide.
Now the court is being urged to rule that it's okay to help. With overflow seating in the courthouse and protesters outside, the court was pressed to reverse the ban on doctor-assisted suicide a ban it upheld 21 years ago.
I was very fortunate to be a member of the legal team in the Carter case, so I was not standing up in court and arguing. I'm not that kind of a lawyer, but I was behind the scenes and involved from early days right through to the not bitter end, the joyous end. I wasn't in the courtroom at the time, but I had my phone and my iPad and my laptop all open at all different sites, waiting because we knew it was coming. And I didn't know where the first word would be. Would it be the text from the team, or would it be whatever? And so all of a sudden, all of it starts going off, and we realize we've won. And that was just an extraordinary moment.
The Supreme Court has struck down the law banning doctor-assisted suicide.
Canadians who are suffering unbearably at the end of life will have a choice now. The choice to seek the assistance of a physician if their suffering becomes unbearable.
You realize there were going to be these people who were going to have access to MAID as a result of this decision, and that hit me in that moment. Was suddenly this sense of thinking of Sue Rodriguez and Kay Carter and Gloria Taylor, and then all these other people who would come after because of the fight that we had just won.
Well, medical assistance in dying has been made available to Canadians by striking down the criminal code through the Carter versus Canada decision. And in Canada, that right is afforded to Canadians who meet certain criteria.
It's a legal, compassionate end-of-life care provided by clinicians who safely and effectively end a person's life in specifically safeguarded circumstances, which include the explicit request of a competent adult. Assisted dying. I think there are valid concerns by the public and by other healthcare providers about how this work is done. It's essential that it's done well to the highest of standards. There's no room for sloppy work at this time.
I look to the US and I see problems with their system, and we, I think, have avoided those. So we have a set of eligibility criteria and a set of procedural safeguards.
From a purely practical standpoint, it means that a patient needs to be assessed by two clinicians following a witnessed consent or request for the assessment. And then the provision itself, after they're found eligible by those two clinicians, is then offered to the patient in one of two ways. One would be clinician-administered medical assistance in dying, or self-administered medical assistance in dying.
We have a very robust regime, and I think we've got it right. And I think in part, an interesting part of why we have it right is actually how it came about, and the fact that it came about through the courts rather than through the legislatures. So yet legislatures have been involved in Canada with the bills, but the reason we have it is because of Carter and Clipsham, and that means that our system is driven by the Charter. The parameters are set by our rights.
My cancer is rapidly progressing, and I can feel the pain. My pain medication is keeping me alive. It's preserving me. I'm like a jar of pickles that's been on the shelf for 30 years now. And somebody should eat me soon or throw me out. I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I had my surgery, which involved taking my spleen out and much of my pancreas. They could not get clear margins because it already had metastasized to the lymph nodes. It is one of the hardest cancers to treat.
You sure you're okay?
I am okay.
Yeah. I can
Totally.
take the coffee.
Once I get sitting down and I can get my neck righted,
Yeah.
I'll be fine.
Okay.
Down on our little butt skis.
Before
her diagnosis, and this is kind of it sounds a bit weird, she was dying before her diagnosis. She was sad. She was depressed. She just wasn't happy. Since her diagnosis, she started to live. She has appreciated life. She's come alive. She's happy. It's just like she had some kind of an awakening, because she is genuinely happy.
I chose MAID because I heard through my palliative nurse that this was an option. This was a possibility. So I just jumped in, did my research, and said, this is what I want. Because I could stay in the driver's seat of my own life. It gave me dignity. It gave me my humanity. So it can be whenever I'm ready.
How she came to the idea of having this legacy tattoo, I don't know how she thought of it.
How are you?
I am good. How are you? I don't look good.
Oh, it's okay. Neither do I. Who cares what we look like?
I'm sweaty too.
That's all right. Me too.
I'm gonna pour some mimosas.
Yeah, you'll be good.
Okay. Would you like a mimosa? Who would like a mimosa?
No, that's a good size. I think that's a good size.
To my sisters, thank you for being on this journey with me. It's been a crazy ride, but I wouldn't go through it with anybody else. So thank you. I love you both.
I love you too. I think for her, having it on us is her way of still living on and enjoying moments in life that people are still, like she's still able to live through everybody with this dragonfly on her. It's perfect.
Oh, Trisha, that is so you. So you.
Yep.
Yay! Hugs! Hugs! Hugs!
Oh, I'm so happy for us.
Let me see. Oh, far exceeded my expectation.
Beautiful. Thank you. Oh my God, I love it. I love you. I love you too. Thank you for doing this for us. Thank you for doing this.
I love it.
I love it too.
Always wear it proud.
Oh yes, it's beautiful. I love it. It reminds me
Loud
of
and
you.
proud.
That's my Erin. Aw.
I need the key to open.
Open it, or maybe, oh,
Yeah, not this one, but. So, I just need a break. I gotta keep my eyes open. I get dizzy. A little bit. I'm okay though. Get you to get the door for me, love.
Are we going to be honest here? Really, I mean, I can see at this point, like, I mean, she's declining so fast that it's, and there's no, you know, like, you can't fix fucked, so it's, she's just, she knows that, we know that, so you just gotta kind of enjoy her until she's dead and you move on. I mean, you don't, you don't move on, like, you just, like, you can't bring her back, so you don't, you know, you just don't forget her and you get on with your life.
Never a dull moment, hey? My baby sister, she was 8 years younger than I. She was diagnosed at 24 of ovarian cancer. So there she was, 25 and going through a divorce and fighting for her life on two fronts. We here in Saskatchewan would go to where she lived in BC and spend time with her, but there were snippets. So she suffered alone. And I can't even relate, I can't imagine, because I couldn't have done that. And to now get it from her perspective, it's come full circle. And I understand the enormity of what she went through. And had MAID been an option for her, we would have all gladly signed on, as would she have. She died in the worst way possible, in pain.
There was a lot, and still is, I think, controversy amongst palliative care teams and groups across the country that if you provide good palliative care, you shouldn't need to ask for MAID.
Pain is, in our region, is probably the least precipitating cause of a person pursuing MAID. Our palliative care physicians are amazing. Our pain doctors are amazing at managing pain. By far, it's about people pursuing MAID when the quality of life for them has passed a certain threshold.
It is a legal right. It's a legal right for people to wish to have medical assistance in dying. And there are 10 rooms in the hospice and 10 individuals and 10 families, and they all have a different perspective on what end of life and their life means to them. Our team still follows their colleges. They have the right to be part or not be part. But by and large, our palliative care hospice team is alongside the patient when their MAID providers in their team also provide that circle of care. So in many ways, MAID in hospice just means that we've expanded the circle of care.
The difference that MAID brings to the table is the ability to choose.
Once Audrey was assessed and approved for MAID, she went through all of the required, rigorous screening and everything. We learned of a flaw in the law, really, is the way we described it, when we learned about late-stage consent.
She was at risk of losing capacity. And because of the legislation that said you have to be capable of giving express consent immediately prior to the provision, she wasn't sure that she wasn't going to lose capacity if she tried to make it to Christmas and then lose her ability to have access to MAID.
And that is where Audrey said, "Oh no, my friends, this is not right."
She spoke out about this because it's this twist of the way the law was drafted and the express consent provision at the end. It set up this situation which people felt was really cruel and meant that people were dying earlier than they wanted to.
She always believed that really in life, your last breath is equally as important as your first breath. And, she said to us, "I am taking my death on like a project, and I'm going to do it really well." Audrey did a lot of media interviews. She wrote to her MPs. She did Facebook campaigns, letters to the Prime Minister.
She said, "This is cruel. I have to go earlier than I want to go because of this." And what is being protected? Who is being protected, and what is being salvaged by not letting me have this? And there was no good answer to that question.
So she said, this is how I'm going to make my life, my death, the most meaningful I can.
My fellow Canadians, my name is Audrey Parker. 2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer that had metastasized in most of my skeleton. I knew when I got that awful news, I had to make a really big decision. Would I live my life in fear, or would I try to make every day of the rest of my life the best it could possibly be? And that is exactly what I did. I'm grateful to live in Canada, a country where I can choose my death. But the law has forced me to play a cruel game of chicken.
And, she started that video that we shot before her death. And, like my fellow Canadians, that's what she did it for. She did it for all of us.
Audrey, she was a big supporter of hospice before it was built, and she contributed to a lot of fundraising and a lot of awareness. And I think her appreciation of the importance of wanting that autonomy and decision making really helps to inform us. We're not very literate in words like death and dying and funerals and bereaved. It's not part of our culture. And I think Audrey helps us to make death and dying and autonomy and decision making part of our culture and part of our language.
Brian grew up in Toronto. They're a very close-knit family. They always look out for one another.
Look at Brian. This is that same day. And me.
Aw, little Victoria. Oh my goodness.
It's me, Brian.
Wow.
Isn't that so cute?
It's so nice.
That's my cousin Elsa, Roger. Look at Elio.
They're a really big family, really big. Full of life.
What do you see?
His disease is hereditary. It affects balance, coordination, and speech. If there's not one way of doing something, Brian will tell you that there's another way. Just find it.
Hello, my name is Brian Oliveira. I'm trying to raise $25,000 for a treatment in California, San Diego, at StemGenics.
Brian's trying to raise $25,000 to help with his disease that even he can't pronounce.
No, I can pronounce it. It's called spinal cerebellar ataxia type 3.
Oh, there you go. So we need your help. Come on, everybody. We've already gone through our rounds of friends and they're all broke. We need your support. Go visit us at GoFundUs.
GoFundMe.com. My site is called Hope for Brian. Thank you very much for your donations and reading my story. Thank you very much.
I hope that there would be a cure.
The determination kicked in that at one point he felt he was going to beat this and nothing was going to stop him. So he tried everything he could. He's done the stem cell treatments twice, leg braces, medication. Cane was 3 years to the walker, and then after the walker was the wheelchair. He did the balance wear vest. He went and got fitted in the States for that, so he could be able to walk down the aisle and walk into the hall.
When you think about your wedding day, what is the most special thing about that day?
For me, it was seeing her walk down the aisle. She looked so beautiful. When he did her furniture or part, I said furniture or furniture.
Was that intentional?
Yeah.
I love you.
Love you too.
But I mean, unfortunately, it gets to the point too where you get tired of fighting because you just you run out of energy reserve, right? And when you keep hearing time after time that there's no cure or there's nothing we can do for you, it's exhausting.
What made me think about MAID was the fact that I can't do nothing for myself anymore. And I want to grow up as brain older. I just want to go peacefully.
When I tell someone that they're eligible for the care, when I'm able to actually say that after we've been through a rigorous process together to establish their eligibility, when I sit in front of them and say, you are eligible, that doesn't mean they're going to have an assisted death or that they have to. It means that they're empowered to make that choice if they want. There's no more loops and hoops to go through. They're offered this moment of control at a time when they've spent weeks, months, or even years with an illness that has basically robbed all control from them. And now they have this ability to make a decision for themselves. They're incredibly grateful for this, and their family is too.
I was happy that this is finally going to be over.
There's a almost unexpected inherent value in the process of being assessed for and being found eligible for assisted dying, simply because for some people it affirms their suffering. And when that suffering is recognized, it can sometimes relieve it to an extent, because not only has somebody seen and heard their experience, but also that option then exists for the moment when they might actually want to use it.
Because one of the things that people forget is, like, we look at the number of people who have MAID, 10,000 now a year, right? So, and you think that's the number who were affected by this decision. But it's so many more people than that, because they're all the people who they know that they can have access if it comes to that. And that gives people enormous peace and relieves suffering. You're not just thinking of the people who are going to actually have MAID, it's all the people who don't have to be afraid of going through a particular kind of dying process.
I have been gifted a life full of trials and tribulations. I see those as gifts because they taught me patience and the difference between victim and survivor. And although at times I felt victimized, I always chose the role of survivor, always trusting in myself to limit my exposure to collecting baggage and negativity. Instead, I surround myself with similar like-minded individuals.
Erin initially had her date set in November. Now, sometimes I thought that she was being overly optimistic, but she was making herself be optimistic on purpose.
Okay.
Are you comfortable? We should get you more comfortable.
No, I'm okay.
So
What day is it?
Today is July 21st,
Okay.
2023.
Shane and I are having a conversation about MAID. If I'm ready to hold again. And I believe that I am. I'm at peace with it. So I think it's important. I know the end is near with my neurologic function. My ability to move around is taking its toll. Having the ability to stay.
Not so lucid anymore all the time.
No. And it doesn't feel good to not have people and keeping me under control pain-wise.
Yeah. So you think you're ready to go through with it?
I think I'm ready.
And what's today's date?
July 21st.
I love you.
Love you. Very much.
To me, sometimes I really have to think, is Erin really gone? Like, but she is, and it just seems weird sitting here alone on the bench. It's kind of makes it final. Like, where is she, Yeah, she's gone. Gone.
On November 1st, I died a beautiful death. I was never able to get control of the cancer that consumed my body, but I did take control of every aspect of my end-of-life experience. I drifted off to my final sleep in my bedroom surrounded by my loved ones, flowers, candles, inspiring art, and Laura Smith singing. It was perfection, except I had to leave weeks or maybe months sooner than I wanted because of late-stage consent required with MAID.
It's this twist, which people felt was really cruel and meant that people were dying earlier than they wanted to. And so her story was very powerful. It came at a moment when the Parliament was looking at amending the law, and a lot of people made the case that we should have Audrey's amendment.
So Audrey's amendment was a cry, a plea to our government to amend the MAID legislation to remove late-stage consent.
It's a really interesting example of the power of an individual and their story making it understandable.
And when she invited people into her dying experience, it was in her own home. It was intimate. She would have people on her bed talking about dying, talking about what it meant to her, talking about things she was frustrated about, talking about her hopes and her wishes for changes in legislation. And she brought people into this very intimate dialogue and maybe gave it a human perspective.
My last wish is that you, my fellow Canadians, that you will help people who've been assessed and approved to live without fear of their rights being taken away. By supporting me, you have made it possible for me to use my story to help others. It has been one of the most satisfying experiences of all my life. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
And when that actually took place on March 17th, 2021, it was a pretty incredible day.
Nearly 4 years ago, Audrey Parker's parting wish was for policy changes to Canada's medically assisted death legislation. Now, that wish is officially part of Nova Scotia's updated MAID policy.
Holy Hannah, did I have a network of fabulous women in my life. I spent a lifetime searching for my people, and I'm grateful I finally found all of you. I considered the many beautiful friendships I cultivated as my greatest accomplishment in life. Throughout my end-of-life journey, people marveled at how comfortable I was with dying. But I did not leave without sadness. It's hard to say goodbye. Until we meet again, I leave you with this simple message: be kind, because you can. Love, Aud.
It's impossible for me not to project myself and my own family and my own relationships into those moments. I'll think about, what if it was me? What if I was in the bed? Who would I want standing next to me holding my hand? What would I want to be remembered for?
So next week, I'm more scared about the plane.
Are you?
Than jumping out of the plane.
You ready for this? Alrighty, my man. Welcome to Skydive Toronto. How you feeling today?
Great.
Great. We're about to take you up and throw you out of an airplane today, yeah? Yeah. All right. What's the special occasion on this?
My bucket list.
Sweet. All right, my man. Yeah, my man. Yeah.
That is how it's done, buddy.
You're laughing, man.
There you go, brother.
How
was that? Killed it, man. Like a professional.
Wow.
He literally flew the parachute to like
did.
1,000 feet.
Wow.
When someone's life is ending, it's always sad. Sometimes it's tragic. But there's this interesting paradox in the work where you have this ability to find closure because you know exactly when and where you're going to die. And when you have that ability to say goodbye and find closure with the people you love and the people who support you in your life, there's these incredible moments of beauty, for lack of a better word, and you have this tragic circumstance and this beautiful moment happening at the same time. And so this work is not really morbid or morose. It's actually profoundly meaningful and incredibly privileged work to be able to be in that moment with families, to be invited into that space and to help facilitate someone's end of life and to facilitate their final wish has proven to be profoundly meaningful work.
Okay, so just a couple of things. So October, you mentioned October 2nd. So October 2nd, we're still going to go ahead with the provision? Yeah, okay. And it's still going to be at the hospital? Okay. In terms of having anybody there, have you talked to anyone or have you guys talked about it with each other?
Yeah, so it'll just be myself and Vicky.
Okay.
In the room with him.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of, I requested that it be a very personal time just for us.
Of course, yeah.
And Brian said he's okay with that, right, Bri?
Yeah.
So just wanted to review a couple of things. So obviously you still want to go ahead with medical assistance in dying? Yeah, okay. And the way that it works is there's 2 assessments that are done. So myself was one assessment and then he had a secondary assessment from someone else. And they're 2 independent doctors, like we don't know each other. So based on that, he was approved for MAID for both assessors. And how it happens is he picks a day and we just kind of accommodate as much as possible.
So he also wanted to let you know that his wedding ring is here and he would like me to take it before, you know.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, you will be there, so this is your car. You're going to drive that, okay? Their medications are through an intravenous, so a nurse will be there to start an IV for him. And it's a total of 4 medications. Right before the procedure, I again ask if Brian wants to go through with this. At any point before I start administering the medications, he has the opportunity to say no or yes. And once the medications have started, the whole procedure lasts about 5 to 7 minutes. Okay. Do you have any questions or do you have anything else you want to ask me?
I am extremely grateful that you administering the drug.
We've all been on this long journey with you, right? But just know you'll be able to kick that wheelchair out of the way and say, Brian's back. Right? Yeah. No more pain, no more suffering. Yeah.
Oftentimes, the patient is ready. They're so ready. But the family, they're the ones left behind. And it's hard to say goodbye to someone. And it's hard to know that today is the day you have to say goodbye.
Brian would like to be remembered as not a guy with the disease. I am a person. I love to dance. I love music. Happy-go-lucky kind of guy. This disease doesn't define who I am as a person. I was a fighter, but unfortunately, I can't now. And what I would like to see is more awareness and more supports for the disability community. That's what Brian's message is.
While I have no control over what's happening, I didn't invite my end-of-life disease into my body, but I may have control over my experience of it in my own way, in my own time.
I think that's what this is about, is for people to be able to say, it is time for my life to end, because my life is no longer worth living to me. It is a source of suffering and not joy. And so I get to say, it's time.
One word to describe why I do what I do.
I'm
gonna have to think.
Oh, easy. The word is fulfilling.
Karen.
Empathy.
I'd say choice.
To give choice.
Choice and empowerment.
I think it's a gift. It's very rewarding, and it's a gift to be able to help people in their time of need.
I think it would be the word grace. I think we offer grace to the patient in their suffering and the family, and with that we also honor who they are as humans.
I would say peace, because that is what it brings to other people.
Honor?
Meaningful.
Rewarding.
2 words, joy and rewarding.
Mitzvah, which is good deed.
It's love. Yeah. I don't tell that to everybody. I can tell that to you.
you.